Hello beautiful creative friends, it's Belinda and I'm back with another new process video to share with you today. For this layout I am using the Better Together collection from Rosie's studio, and I'm basing my layout on a sketch from Dearly Dee. I am a member of her Patreon pals group and I am endlessly inspired by what she has to share. Every month she shares some challenges over in her Facebook group or on her Patreon, and this month I was really inspired by the sketch challenge. I had a couple of photos of my husband and I which was taken from my birthday weekend earlier this year, and I thought that this sketch lent itself really well to documenting those photos. So I'm starting off with a white background and I've trimmed some of this pink pink and white diamond print patterned paper down to, I think I cut it down to about four and a bit inches wide, and I've also used this pattern paper has got some birds and some florals. It's not really something that I could see myself using a lot of, but certainly layered in and tucked underneath where the pattern's not really obvious, that's definitely something that I can get on board with. So I've trimmed that one down to about 2 inches, and then I'm just painstakingly trying to line it up underneath so that it is nice and straight, and I've probably got about a half an inch showing there underneath that pink pattern paper. And when I was preparing for this layout I grabbed one of my border punches, and I've got this scalloped heart punch which I think was from Dress My Craft, and I've just run that along and I'm going to layer that underneath the bottom piece. In the finished layout you don't see a lot of that scalloped border, but it's there and it's just a little bit of extra detail that I'm happy to have. So off camera I've taken that over to my sewing machine. I've added a border all the way around the page, and then I've also added some horizontal stitching across the bottom of each of those pieces of patterned paper. And I wanted to add a few really big splotches onto the white part of this page, just to add a little bit of something extra, something a little bit more interesting. I do like to get into a little bit of mixed media every now and then, and I used this technique for a couple of layouts that I made during my content creation hiatus, and I like how the finished effect looks. So I'm just getting some of that paint or watered down paint onto my brush, and I was squeezing it with my fingers to get those nice big blotches, and then pop that over to the side to dry off while I work on my photos. So as I said, I've got these two photos. They were taken of my husband and I earlier this year when we were staying at a hotel for my birthday weekend. And I've got two photos. They're just slightly smaller than 3x4, and I've chosen 3 pattern papers from the 6x6 paper pad, which you can see over to the left hand side of my cutting mat. I've matted those photos onto some plain white cardstock. That's something that I almost always do. In fact, I will say I always do it on my layouts. I know that I could leave a white border when I'm trimming the photos out after I've printed them, but I like the added dimension that the white cardstock border adds. So I've matted the photos. Now I'm just trimming these pattern papers down to 3x4. I've also cut another piece of that white cardstock down to about the same size as the photo, and I'm going to go off camera shortly and I'm going to run some stitching around the edge of that, and that's just going to be a little piece where I'm going to add some embellishing. So I've just tacked that down, and then I'm going to take it off to my sewing machine and use a nice thick cotton to stitch around the border of that one. And when I come back in a minute, I've grabbed some chipboard. There we go, there's the splotches all nice and dry. I've grabbed some chipboard pieces and I'm going to use those to add some dimension behind each of these photos and this little piece here. I've started using chipboard a lot more rather than foam tape, just because it adds dimension without adding too much bulk. I'm definitely feeling the pinch of space here in my albums, in my crafty room, and I'm finding that I'm wanting to make layouts that aren't quite so bulky so that I can fit more of them in each album. So the chipboard fits that bill really well, and then I can still use a little bit of dimensional foam behind my embellishments just to add a few other layers there, but it's not adding a huge amount of bulk. So I've just used my little pokey tool to lift up the edges and run my finger along those pattern papers. Again, it just adds a little bit of extra texture and some more visual interest. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go and lay a whole bunch of these embellishments down where I think I want them to go, and then I will actually do the adhering down off camera. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that embellishing is something that can take me a little bit of time because I like to fiddle, I like to move things around, I'm a little bit indecisive, and I thought this was a nice way of providing some balance so that you can see the layout coming together, but we're not spending more time than we need to watching me put pieces down and then pick them back up again. So as I mentioned, that white piece over to the left is just going to hold some embellishing. It's also going to hold my title, and then I'm going to build another cluster to the bottom right of that photo, of the strip of photos, and then when I come back in, I'm going to add a few more embellishments to the top of that middle photo. So I'm pretty happy with the placement of things now, so I am going to pop off camera and I'm going to adhere everything down, and you'll see when we come back in that's done. I've also adhered my journaling down underneath the title, and I've added threaded some twine through that tag piece off to the top left. So as I said, now I'm going to add just a few little embellishments to the top of this photo, and that's just to help to move the eye around. So I've really got sort of 3, I guess you could say 4 embellishment clusters, but I just didn't want to leave that photo completely blank. So I've added some florals to each of the clusters so far, and I knew that I wanted to add a floral to this little one as well, but it had to be pretty small because I don't have a lot of space there in the photo without encroaching too much on my head. So I grabbed out these tiny puffy stickers, and that cute little floral was perfect. I've just added a bit of foam dimension to the outside of it to stop it from falling flat against the back of the page. And I do have a few other little bits and pieces here off to the right, which I had pulled out from the collection, intending to see if I could make them work on the page. So I'm going to add a few of those in. I've got the XOXO circle, which has gone to the bottom right, and then a little puffy word strip which says just us underneath that tag. I wanted to put this side-by-side piece in, but I just couldn't really find anywhere to make it work, so it doesn't make it onto the layout. But then to add some balance and also to give me a place to put my date, I'm going to create just a really tiny little cluster down to the bottom right of my page. So you can see on that white piece to the far left of my photo strips, I had trimmed a chipboard frame in half and tucked that underneath, and then I've grabbed the other half of that chipboard frame and I've adhered it down to the bottom right of my page, and that's going to be the base for this little embellishment cluster. I have this pink sort of flag tag piece, and I know that I knew that I wanted to add some twine through it, but because it's right down the bottom of the page, I didn't want to leave any of the thread hanging loose. So one of my favorite little tricks to do when I want to add the texture of the twine but I don't want to have any loose pieces is I just thread it around and around the hole, so it's added lots of texture there, but there's nothing hanging down. It's still nice and neat. I'm going to lay that over the chipboard frame, but again, because I don't want it to fall flat in the gap there, I'm just adding a little bit of foam adhesive, and then on top of that I will add another flag sticker which has got the date on it, and then I will finish that off with this little circle that just says our story, and I'm going to tuck that in there. I will also add a little chipboard heart just to fill the little gap there that's between the 2 tags and where the bottom of that circle starts. Then, as I love to do, I go and grab a couple of different coloured Nuvo drops, and I will come back in shortly and I will finish off the layout by adding some Nuvo drops just to finish off the clusters. There's a gold and there's a translucent pink. And once I've finished, that will be it for this layout. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, I'd love for you to go ahead and leave me a comment or give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join me on my paper crafting adventures. There are some close-up photos coming in just a moment, but I will leave it there and say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.